goal. Spills to Bailey. Bailey's already kicked the goal from there. He breaks loose. Miracle goal. What a goal from Bailey.
And I declare the winner of the 2023 Brownlow Medal, Lachie Neale of the Brisbane Lions Football Club.
The Queens of the Jungle. They reclaim their throne. The Brisbane Lions are AFLW premiers for the second time.
Back to Rayner. Rayner from 55. Is this the perfect response? Bang!
Ashcroft out of midair. Oh, you are kidding me!
My God.
Something unbelievable from the kid. That is ridiculous.
We've got a top-end nude out there in Robinson, and he is loving it.
Oh, he's text.
He's almost flexing.
Here's Charlie again. Cue that song back up.
The Brisbane Lions Fancast is back in a second sort of podcast for this week. If you missed it, we teamed up with the guys from the Main Event for their podcast, which we recorded yesterday, which was a Sunday for those of you playing at home. That will be available for you on YouTube. That should be there, I think, Monday night. So it's probably already available by the time you're listening to this. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you check out the Main Event, guys. It was a bit of fun to catch up with some other like-minded people and chat some Lions.
Yeah, it was pretty weird being like an authoritor on any sort of topic. Don't really feel like I've earned that, but I suppose after a year in the game, you know, you're at least a year more experienced than other people whom are not.
Yeah, it's sort of like if you want to become a piano teacher, you've just got to stay one lesson in front of the kid.
I say that all the time about so many different things. It's ever, like, relevant, I suppose. So, yeah, you bang on.
All right, we are back for just a little episode this week to keep things flowing because we've got a game on Thursday night. And it's all thanks to our good sponsors for 2024, Hop On Brewery Tours and Crisp Communications. Don't forget, you can get your free Brisbane Lions Fancast stickers thanks to Crisp Communications. Just check out our website for that, brisbanelionsfancast.com. So the links are there. Abby and the team has sorted out some fantastic stickers. And you can always book yourself a half or full day tour at hoponbrewerytours.com.au. Experience some of the best craft breweries across Gold Coast and Brisbane. It's a lot of fun. I've been on a couple myself with Matt and Joss. Bloody great people they are. And it's a fun little day out. And you get to learn and experience and taste and have some good chats. And yeah, just a fun little time. So these guys are doing their bit.
Would you say it's as much a hell of a day out as the old Kingston Park Raceway was?
I mean, that's still there. Kingston Park Raceway. Yeah. I've never been myself, but I certainly have heard okay
that truly
things.
Was a hell of a day out.
Let's get into it. Collingwood and Brisbane, Easter Thursday at the Gabba after a week off for the bye. Both of these teams have been heavily scrutinised, more so last week in the media. I think Collingwood will get a bit more this week. Winless starts to the season. The first time in history, both grand finalists have gone 0-2. Collingwood now finds himself 0-3, facing the barrel of 0-4. And can you imagine what AFL 360, the couch, everyone is gonna have to say if they go 0-4 next week?
I'd rather them go 0-4 than us go 0-3.
Yeah,
or to be honest, just because I want to win a game.
Well, don't we all? It's a weird one because obviously the last time we played Collingwood, the stakes were incredibly high, being a premiership. This time it's a home and away game, so the stakes aren't as high in that respect, but in a way they sort of are because, you know, 0-3, 0-4, you're going to get absolutely smashed left, right and centre by not just your supporter base, but everyone's going to pick apart your team to within an inch of its life after a winless start to the season.
It's almost like the second best case scenario for the competition as like a neutral in terms of like the ideal thing would have been both teams like 2-0 and 3-0 and like vying for top spot. The next best, no wins.
Yep.
Will they draw?
Oh, imagine that.
That would be absolutely cooked if that happened. But, you know, yeah, they've created stakes out of a game where if, you know, both teams had like picked up 1-1, 1-2, whatever, it just would have been like, yeah, cool, grand final rematch. Now there is a bit of spice to it. Like, I think both teams will want to put some things right for the season, and then the Lions will obviously have that extra little bit in the back of their head to try and put things right from the grand final. But I think we'll be looking at a team that is a little bit removed from the grand final team, just by nature, I guess, more than anything.
Yep.
Whereas Collingwood, to be honest, I haven't really watched too much of Collingwood because I don't like them.
Well, I mean, I've obviously been watching them because I love to watch all sorts of footy, and I've been enjoying the unravelling so far. And I mean, a lot of talk about Nick Dacos last week in the lead up to his 50th game, and then even more chat afterwards because it was probably one of his poorer games that he's put out there, and questions on his defensive efforts, how hungry he is for a hard ball, and all that sort of stuff. So, one interesting stat I learned about Nick Dacos: he's laid 10 tackles in his 3 seasons.
I mean, none of this stuff is overly surprising to me because it's all the stuff I say about him. Hard ball, he's a second possession getter, doesn't lay a tackle, no defensive accountability. That said, he is very skilled.
He certainly is, yeah. And I mean, his skill set sort of lends himself to getting that second ball and not necessarily being, a defensive player in that sort of respect. So it's tall poppy syndrome, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't falling into myself. I think just the constant dick riding of Nick Dacos has just gone on far too long, and everyone's a little bit sick of it, unless you're a Collingwood fan, in which case I get it. If it was the same thing with Will Ashcroft, I'd probably be right on board as well. So it is what it is. That doesn't make Thursday's game any less spicy, but it's just like their senior players. Pendlebury is not playing particularly well. Darcy Moore is having a bit of a shocker to start the year. Sidebottom, DeGoey, all of these guys underperforming. They're still mixing with their forward line. Dan McStay, a huge out before the season even began. Ash Johnson played a couple of games, then had to leave the team, and he had to disable his social media accounts because he was getting smashed from Collingwood supporters, which is just really a poor thing to see. That McGuinness, Reef McGuinness, I think his name is. I've probably butchered that. He looks all right, sort of a tall forward up front, very young still. So, they're a bit shaky up forward, but they're equally shaky down back. Jeremy Howe also not playing very well. Isaac Quainer not nearly to the standard he set last year, and missing Murphy is a big one. Bo McCreary though is I know you've been a big fan for a long time. He's playing a little bit more in the middle as well. You got to love the way he goes about his footy.
Well, not anymore. I was a fan of him before he became a good player, and then I realised how much of a fuckwit he was on the field. So, constantly, I think it's kind of one of those a bit probably similar to like the Dane Zorko in terms of like, you'd want to have him on your team, but you don't really like him anymore. I think I definitely don't like him anymore. So,
there you go.
Had been a big fan. Enjoyed his running and his speed and his effort. Now he can go and get in the bin.
Sure. All right. Well, fair enough. There you go. Is that love affair with Bo McCreary.
It's done. It's over.
On the other hand, we've certainly got our fair amount of underperforming players on our list at the moment as well. And as we've spoken about quite a bit, the bye came at the right time, a serious opportunity for us to check ourselves and see exactly where we're going wrong. I did hear, now this is like third or fourth hand information, so take from it what you will. But apparently during the week, Fagan gave the boys a bit of a spray, not necessarily about their on-field efforts, but the sort of 1%ers off-field. Apparently a few taking the piss with, we've got a game on Saturday night. Oh, it's probably all right to go out a little bit later on a Tuesday night and do a little bit of things that not necessarily feed into the hungry, want a premiership behaviours that they're necessarily looking for. Once again, this is third, fourth hand information by the time it's got to me. So take from it what you will, but I mean, I like to think that Fags is sort of running a tight ship when it comes to that sort of stuff, and we're not letting the boys get ahead of themselves and being happy with what they've achieved.
Yeah. I suppose it is a little bit like you're kind of wondering why, but I suppose young adults will be young adults at some point in time, I guess, but you kind of would hope that the off-season is a bit of time for that. But I don't know. I think definitely there seems to be something wrong attitude-wise, just in terms of the kind of steps back we seem to have made so far this season as opposed to last season or even the year before. So, good if it happened. If it didn't, it wouldn't surprise me. If it's kind of a storm in a teacup, also kind of wouldn't surprise me. But hopefully, just this element of like this kind of stakes of a game will kind of bring the group together. And I still am pretty adamant that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, we've probably still played the best quarter of footy in the comp so far, albeit one.
Yeah.
They showed up for one quarter, but
The Bulldogs on Sunday against Gold Coast were pretty good. They kicked like 55 odd points in their first quarter, so that was pretty impressive. But yeah.
Yeah, it's the Bulldogs though, and they're in Ballarat, so it doesn't really count. It's not a real place.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I do agree. Our first quarter against Carlton is by far and away the best footy I've seen us play, and we just obviously need to produce it for more than a quarter. And I don't know if you saw, and I spoke about it on one of the videos you can find on our Patreon page, the midweek media wrap-up, that Sir Swamp Thing put out a stat about the Lions that our first and last quarters, our percentage is like well over 200, and our second and third quarters is like 30%. So we've got the best first and last quarters in the league by a long way, and the worst second and third by a long way as well. So we need to average that out to, 120 to 150% across all four quarters, and then we'll be right.
Hopefully not averaging, because that would just leave us in the same spot, but with a largely more arduous and potentially depressing journey. But improvement in the middle too would be good.
Yes.
So.
We flagged some changes last week. I think I had 4, you had 4 as well. Since then, we've had a VFL game, and I watched 90% of it. Life gets in the way, and you have to duck out for bits and pieces. But some good showings, especially from Jimmy Tunstall, Jackson Pryor, Bruce Revel, and Logan Morris, who we spoke about in the preseason. He kicked 4 in one of the intra-club matches, took a screamer. Intra-club preseason, take from it what you will. But backed that up against the Bombers VFL team, kicked 4 goals too. Moves really well for a bigger fella, and uses the ball quite well as well. So I was quite happy with what I saw from him. And Shadow Brain, his first half in particular was very impressive. Can kick on both sides of his body as well, left and right foot. Covered the ground well. And that last fellow we picked up in the draft in the 60s, Reece Torrent, had a fairly decent game as well. 19 touches, 1 goal, a couple of tackles here and there. But Jimmy Tunstall by far and away the standout. So I would imagine he is going to take a spot on Thursday night ahead of Kyle Lohmann, who went off injured. And as of yet, time of recording, no update on him or Darcy Gardner at this stage. So it remains to be seen what happens with those two. But it looks like they'll take at least a week off.
Yeah, we haven't heard about the PCL, have we?
No, and there was an interview with Zorks that went up on the Lions website, and he seemed pretty buoyant about it. Apparently Darcy said it was feeling better, he was moving better, it wasn't nearly as stiff. So it just remains to be seen what comes back from the scan. So no confirmation as of yet, but they were talking about a PCL, which is about a 6 to 8 week injury, and you know what Dizzy's body's like, so probably best to play it safe when it comes to that, regardless of what the actual diagnosis is.
Do you think with this game we go in with the 2+1 talls?
Harris, Payne, and Duday?
No, forward line. So Joe, Eric, and then whether it's Cam Rayner or whether it is miraculously Diz, or whether Payne plays forward.
Yes. I think there will be a combination of the two. I think Duday had managed minutes in the VFL. He was also being made available to media today, which is a good sign that he will be lining up on Thursday, and most likely in the back line. Payne played a good game down back, but did swing forward and kick 2 goals as well. So I think Fagan's obviously looking for that versatility there. So he wants that as an option, and whether it's, as I've spoken about, he likes the 3 tall forwards, that's what he's got his heart set on, or if he's very cognizant of the fact that if Eric or Joe go down with an injury, we're left pretty thin in depth there. So, and it'd be a big ask to get someone like Logan Morris to just jump up to AFL level that soon. So I think it's probably more of that he's just looking for insurance in the forward line in case the worst happens. It'll be good to have that versatility. Collingwood, as we said, don't necessarily have a tall forward line. Myercheck and Reef will be their sort of tall forwards. Obviously, Jamie Ellett is like the marking type, sort of like your Link McCarthy, Cam Rayner type
He's literally Dark Link.
Yeah.
He's the if Link McCarthy had gone a very different path in his life, he would be Jamie Elliott.
Yeah.
So.
And then
it's interesting. I feel like this game would have been tailor-made for Gardner up forward. Like, I just think that it would have been a perfect game for him to kind of link up, and there's kind of probably room and that sort of thing, but not to be seemingly.
I think they will roll with Rayner forward and have Harris Payne and Duday down back. I don't think Duday will play a full game. I think he'll get subbed out. And it was this game last year after Cam Rayner started in the back line that Fags moved him forward, and he basically tore the game apart in the first half. So hopefully that happens again, and he does the same thing up forward. Need more out of Cam, need more out of Zach, need more out of our midfield. It'll be good to have Lockie back. I mean, obviously, he put the blast on very publicly last week, and everyone was very impressed with his words. It's a shame he wasn't there to back it up with a performance against Freo. So to have him back, hopefully he can lead by example in that respect when our midfield has been very questionable in the first 2 games. So hopefully he has a game a la that Richmond final in 2022 where he didn't leave the ground in the last half and picked up, 39 touches or something and really did it all himself. So, a vintage Neil performance would be pretty handy.
I think also the forecast of Zorko going back into half back, the midfield combination, hopefully with Jared Lyons coming out, but at the same time, it might not. With him, Neil, that is, McCluggage, Dunkley, Dev Rob, they kind of just need to roll a few more through. I feel like they need to roll more through the midfield and kind of keep it less predictable. Because one of the big things that, for me was going back to 2019, way back, where Melbourne, it was sort of pre-Melbourne winning a flag, but they were a bit of a factor. They'd played maybe in a prelim the year before. And their midfield was kind of predictable. It was Brayshaw, Petrarca, Oliver, or Viney. And then it was Viney. It was Viney, Petrarca, Oliver, and Gawn. And we just rolled through the midfield. We rolled 12 dudes through the midfield and absolutely just destroyed them with versatility. And it almost seems like we're becoming that predictable entity.
Yeah.
Which I don't love. I'm sure I've talked about it, but just the idea of so much talk about Cam Rayner and his centre bounce tendencies and Bailey and Jared Berry barely ever rolls through there anymore. Why not?
Well, I'll tell you what, I will be filthy if I get to the Gabba on Thursday night and the siren goes, they break up from their huddle, and I see Jared Berry drifting down to the back line instead of, a wing or inside mid. As I said on the podcast we did with the main event, give Jared Berry a job. And I think that job is DeGoey or Pendlebury. And just be that your job for the day. And just do what we know you're good at and find yourself a groove. Instead of being a liability down back. Play where you play your best footy, in and around the ball. Use your big body. Shut someone out of the game. Or learn from them. Learn from DeGoey, learn from Pendlebury, how they go about finding the ball. And that's what I want for him. I don't want to see him drift down back, and I want to see Zorko down back.
Would you take him trying to do a job on Josh Dacos?
Sure. Although,
even if he was on the wing and he was trying to really kind of knuckle down, because that was definitely one thing that I don't think people give him really any credit for last year, is that he did play a lot of wing, and it was kind of the first season he did play, as a full-time winger, and he kind of played as that detractor. Whereas on the other side, at various stages, whether it was sort of, we kind of have one goes, one stays, kind of like classic. And Kalachi was kind of more the link man.
He did a great job on Dacos last year as well.
Yeah, and same with Fletcher. But there was a lot of games where, Jared Berry was really nullifying, particularly pretty good wingers. So I don't know. Yeah, definitely not down back for me. Please, God, no.
That will be a real red flag.
Tone setter?
Yeah, it'll be a real red flag straight off the bat. And, a lot of the questions about the Lions at the moment are about their resilience. The word resilience has been thrown around a lot, and that's largely due to the fact that 2 teams have managed to pile on 7-8 goals in a row on us. And when the heat gets turned up, we turn to water. And the other question is, well, what have you learnt in the off-season? You came back and you said, learn things, but you haven't put it into practice, and the same problems that were there last year are here now and more glaringly obvious because it's happened 2 weeks in a row. So to see Jared Berry go down back straight off the bat will be another case of what have we learned here? Because what we did learn is that didn't work. So why are you doing it again? So
Yeah.
I'd
almost throw into that as well, like the idea of just like, it's frustrating to see sort of Dev Rob play as a high half forward in the first half of most games where he plays. It's like he's not as good at that as other players.
Yeah.
And he's better than other players in the centre bounce. Like, yeah, fair enough. He wasn't getting really any of the ball, and they put him on Sarong, and it's like, he's not going to get much ball as a tagger, and he could very well come out of the team for Neil, which I think would suck, because I think his level of burst in and around the contest is sort of the thing that we actually kind of need, more so than others. But I'm kind of on an embargo in terms of talking about that. But yeah, like, play people where they want to play and where they're best at playing the game. Like, has anyone actually asked Jared Berry, hey, where do you like to play on the football field?
I mean, you like to think that's the case, but you can't really go and ask every player, where do you want to play? And then just stick them there, I suppose you do. And Fags is really big on versatility. Like, that has been his biggest thing. And I think that is one thing he took away from the grand final is... And maybe it has been a bit of the inspiration behind putting a Gardner or a Payne up forward, because we saw what Billy Frampton did to Harris Andrews, and maybe he wants someone like that in our team. And, they moved Myercheck behind the ball last year as well, and it's like, well, who can we do that with? And, Dane Zorko spoke in the off-season about a number of triggers that Collingwood pulled that they weren't necessarily expecting. I think Fags wants that for us as well. But yeah, it's coming to our detriment so far, if that's the inspiration behind the whole thing.
Yeah, I think versatility is great until you've kind of gone too far and you end up with like
no one playing in position.
Yeah, like it's all well and good, because it's like what Billy Frampton did in the grand final is not so much versatility as it is him playing his normal defensive role at the other end of the field. So, but I do think that the other way around with Myercheck going back, like we've seen going back behind the ball as a seventh is a bit more of an art form than it's probably given credit for these days. But yeah, definitely, like, it's, whilst versatility is great, I think it's there in a more natural capacity with certain players. Rolling Berry, say wing, forward, centre bounce. That's your versatility. Like, do you really need to go wing, centre bounce, forward, halfback? Like, is the halfback that important?
I mean,
for him personally,
for him, no.
Whereas, you could look at someone like Zach Bailey or Cam Rayner, and halfback for them could be far more valuable in terms of the way they would roll through. So I don't think that it's like... It seems cookie cutter versatility, everyone's expected to be versatile in the same way, which seems like it, whilst theoretically is fine because you got a structure to work for, it's sort of like, nah... Is that actually really what you want? You want everyone to be as versatile as each other all the time, playing all the different same positions. It's like, nah, let some of them do some things, let some do the other things, and just give them a job to do and eliminate some of those weird cockroaches in the brain.
Well, it'll be very interesting Thursday. I mean, it'll be very interesting Wednesday night when the teams drop, and to see what sort of changes have been made. It'll be even more interesting, like I said, when those huddles break up Thursday night and players take their positions and who goes where. So I'll be eagerly awaiting to see what happens there. So are you sticking with the same changes? I had Tunstall coming in for Lohmann, Neil coming in for Lyons, Duday coming in for McKenna, and then Gardner was going out as well. And I can't remember who I had as my other one. Payne comes in. Yeah, Payne. That's it. And then Zorko shuffles behind the ball. I'd probably move Dev to the sub and have Tunstall start, or Tunstall as the sub. And like I said, I think Duday gets subbed off, if not one of Tunstall or Dev. It'll be like one of those three. That sort of...
Was Tunstall playing in the centres in the VFL?
Yeah.
That's an interesting option. Yeah, I think I'm probably sticking with more or less what you did. Also because I think the Tunstall thing makes more sense. I still think there's a chance Pryor could play, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there is every chance. He played pretty well on the weekend.
And there also could just be, like, if I feel like it's sort of the ones coming in would be Tunstall, Payne, Duday, and Neil. And if there's an injury to someone else, then Pryor will probably come in just to kind of create a bit of balance. If there is a niggle to, like, let's say Archie or Fletcher or Berry, like Pryor would come in and play half back. So, yeah, I think Tunstall's kind of played himself into the side ahead of Pryor for me.
I think,
but
for
also
most people.
it does leave us a little bit light in terms of the half back because we're again sort of stuck with the, I guess Zorko, Ainsworth, and
Stars
Wilmot
and
kind of
Stars,
provide those three because it is really the three that it's like for everything about the three tall forwards we've had three half back kind of breakers. So with Stars as our lockdown and then the two talls. So
and Leicester as well floating through there. So
yeah.
It's a tall lineup down back. If all those changes happen, you've got Harris, Payne, Duday, and Leicester. And Leicester's sort of your medium hybrid with a series of small mediums running around in Zorko, Ainsworth, Stas, and Wilmot. So, for the amount of people we've lost in that back line, there's still a number of names down there as well that can roll through. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if one of them drifted forward in Jack Payne, potentially.
Yeah, I think the versatility for Duday and for Leicester to play taller or play smaller is really there. Like you could for sure see Leicester go to Jamie Elliott. We talked on the other one. You said you'd like to see Stars go Bobby Hill, and you would know if you'd watched the game again that
it wasn't all him.
Starcevic only really played on him and actually didn't cop up. He only coughed up one goal when he was playing on him. So he had one holding the ball and Bobby Hill had one holding the ball. So they basically broke even. It was just a perception thing. Arguably, Bobby Hill, I think, kicked 3 goals on Leicester.
Yeah.
So the things you know. But I'd send Ainsworth to Bobby Hill just because there's a bit of like-minded agility there. And then I'd have sort of Leicester go to Elliott and Starcevic, whatever. They'll figure it out. They'll know where to go.
I mean, you can only hope so.
We've been saying that for weeks now.
Yeah. Do you put anyone on Nick Dacos or let him do his thing?
My thing has been to put someone on Nick Dacos and absolutely shirt front him for 2 years. Or, 18 months. Maybe not on game one. But
for you, that person was Zorko, so you can't necessarily have him doing both as playing behind the ball like I want and him running around with Nick Dacos. And he hasn't got the fitness to run around with Nick Dacos for a full game.
No, not anymore. Send Dev to him.
Yeah.
If Dev's in the team, send Dev to him. If not, it's the thing with Dacos, and I'll give him credit for this. He's a very agile, quick burst mover.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like, it does make it kind of difficult to tag because, just could we bring Crowley out of retirement?
Well,
get him to have a go.
Yeah, for maybe 5 minutes before he's gassed. Yeah, I mean, it's a consideration, or do you cut your losses with it? Because last year when they played up here as well, I think he got 42 and kicked 2 as well. And it was immaterial to the final score when we won by, 5 or 6 goals. So maybe you just let it happen and account for it in the sort of the totality by the end of the game, or you put some effort into him. Because, I mean, yes, he's a very good player, but he's not necessarily they're not a one-man team.
I just want to see someone actually give him a proper high shot. He buys so many of them. I want someone to actually stick one in.
Yeah, well, that's another thing, whether he'll be pulling that sort of carry on after it was pretty heavily scrutinised. And Pendlebury's doing the same thing as well, throwing his head back a little bit. And even Collingwood fans are like, get this out of your game. So,
well, that's one thing I said last year, because I've been critical of Dacos, particularly with the way that he kind of draws the high free kicks. And, he got, 4 of them in the grand final and 2 of them were half there.
Yep.
And it's like, if Will Ashcroft was doing the same thing, I would not like it because it's not a good thing for the game.
No, it's not. And we've had our own with Reece Matheson, who took the piss with that as well. So, look, as long as it keeps getting rewarded, it'll keep being part of the game, unfortunately. And it's one of those hard things to police because you get the opposite where Jack Ginnivan made a name for himself doing it and then they just stopped paying the legitimate ones as well. So it's a bit of a swings and roundabouts with that sort of thing. So I agree. I don't want, it's not within the spirit of the game, as it were, and you want to be able to win your own ball and play the footy right. So, yeah, I would hate to see it happen with one of our players, but at the same time, if it's giving me goals, beggars can't be choosers at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we talked in the preseason one about was it Hayward for Sydney leading with his head and getting collected a little bit by Darcy Wilmot, and it's like they just need to be play on. They can't be paying people leading with the head. But that said, that's not what Nick Dacos does because he never wins first ball. So let's move on. Anything else with team or matchup stuff that you're curious about?
I don't think so. The last couple of times we've played Collingwood, Charlie has managed to get off the chain as well. He seemed to have the measure on, excluding the grand final, I should say. He seems to play well on Isaac Quaynor, but Maynard sort of matches up on him reasonably well. So it'll be interesting to see what they do down there, how they can cover Bailey, Link, and Chuck, because I think they're lacking that one. They tried that Charlie Dean fella down there. He got dropped. I don't know if he comes straight back into the team. Markov is down there as well, who's not necessarily the greatest defensive player, but creates a lot of run and carry from their half-back line. So I think we can potentially expose them a little bit there, and Bailey did an all right job especially the early stages of the grand final. So there's opportunity there for us. Darcy Moore and Jeremy Howe will go to Danaher and Hipwood respectively, and then if we do drift someone else down there with a bit of height, it'll be interesting to see how they counteract that.
They do seem a bit short, don't they?
Yeah, both ends of the ground, and I think they're really missing Murphy and what he brings at the moment, and hopefully he can get back because I like Murphy. He's good. He's squinting quite hard over there.
Yeah, he kind of his goose was cooked with that whole like Caminiti thing for me, where he really instigated and got bopped in the face and then got concussed and tried to go back out on the field to remonstrate. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Like, I don't know. I don't like Murphy at all. So,
okay.
Surprise.
Well, regardless, it's not something we have to worry about on Thursday night anyway. He is at least a few weeks away from what I've been reading, so no need to worry about that. It should be a good match. Like I said, high stakes without being the same high stakes that we last saw these two teams play. But yeah, whoever loses this is going to face all sorts of scrutiny.
Yeah, and probably rightly so, I say. But
yeah. All right, no questions this week. We sort of covered most of it on the episode last week. We did say we would touch on the whole Gabba Stadium debacle that has unfolded over the last few months. And once again, if you want a full comprehensive chat on that, make sure you check out the Raw Deal because they cover it so much better.
Yeah, like my take on it, and this is the layman's terms of what I have done very minimal research, so this will be equally as informative for me, is the Olympics are happening, obviously. Is it that they wanted to first upgrade the Gabba, then they decided not to, then they thought about the Victoria Park Stadium, then they decided to get an independent commission, which recommended that they do the second one, and then they decided to do neither?
Yes. That's the basics of it. So originally it was upgrade the Gabba, rehouse Brisbane and Cricket Australia for those years, but then we've also got to upgrade the RNA Showgrounds. Oh, this is turning out to be an expensive endeavour. What else can we do? Vic Park. And then there was like you said, independent report from Graham Quirk, former mayor of Brisbane. He said that, Victoria Park is the way to go, and in terms of the lifespan of the Gabba, it is like rapidly drawing to a close, like 10 years max. There's all sorts of things that aren't right with it as it stands. Like the roof and the shade sails are really going to need a fair amount of money to put up. And I think it's like at least $500 million just for maintenance over the next little bit, just to like tidy up and wallpaper over the cracks. And then if you really want to make a difference to get it up to like proper stadium level, it's going to be another $1 billion or something like that as well. So we're already adding more money to what's already there, and this is the cheapest option, and it's literally just band-aids on stuff, and then upgrading QSAC temporarily only once the Olympics goes to bring it back to what it is now, which is a dive, and then upgrade Suncorp as well, which probably doesn't need it as much as the Gabba. It's just an absolute shit show.
So where would the like extra chairs? I'm assuming they're using like steel chairs, the holdouts for Cusack. Where are the extra 30,000 chairs going to go after they just dump them in the Brisbane River?
I mean, I don't know. So
because it's on the thing that I read, it's sort of the criticisms of the Gabba were different to what you outlined there. They were more with regards to the rooms and with the corporate areas, which I'm sort of like, do we really give that much of a shit about the corporate areas?
it's all the stuff you can't see. Yeah, it's all the stuff you can't see.
I love the Gabba.
Yeah.
You know, I will maintain that I think it is like a great ground to watch football. It's like a mini MCG with like a weird country feel almost. But yeah, it seems to me like they've somehow picked the cheapest option rather than the one with the most longevity. And they've done it under the guise of like, well, we can't spend $3.4 billion with this current cost of living and housing crisis, so we'll spend 2.7. And it's like, don't have the fucking Olympics then.
Yeah.
Like, if you're worried about the cost of living and stuff, don't have the Olympics and tax the rich.
Yeah, do it properly or don't do it at all. Like, it's just this half-baked thing that is, and there was talk that there's going to be a review and like whether it just gets pulled out altogether
of the
like just taken
Olympics.
away. Yeah,
because I'm pretty sure didn't Melbourne do that with the Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, that was meant to be across like Victoria, like regional Victoria and Melbourne and stuff. So, and they said, you know what, nah, and then the Gold Coast sort of half put their hand up for it to have it again, and they're like, yeah, actually, probably not. So, honestly, it's just a nightmare, and it'll be interesting to see if any of these attitudes change after the election in October.
Yeah, I just it seems a bit weird. Like, I used to do PE at Vic Park, so it is kind of pretty funny, the idea of like there being a massive stadium there. But I for me, as like a selfish Lions fan, I wanted them to not have to leave an AFL ground, because I theorized a couple of years ago, sort of like, oh, with the Olympics happening, that's going to perfectly, like, if they're going to redevelop the Gabba, that's going to happen at the exact time when we're like on the downswing.
Yeah.
So membership will be at an all-time low by the time the Gabba like comes back with like, however many seats, and it'd be the same sort of thing. Like, I honestly don't think that there's necessarily a demand for having like the amount of seatage that probably this new development would have. And like, whether it's the case of wanting to do a like Optus Stadium-esque type thing and have 60,000, it's like, is it just that making it go from 40,000 to 60,000 is kind of negligible in terms of cost of building? Like, oh, well, we've made it that much and it's cost this amount, it's only a little bit more to get that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I prefer smaller grounds that are packed than bigger grounds. Like, did you watch Melbourne Hawthorn? It was terrible.
Yeah, it's crazy. But then it also, footy and cricket aside, it opens Brisbane up to host bigger stadium events as well. Like, and I hate that I'm using this on this podcast, but like there was no Taylor Swift concert here because we didn't have the stadium to facilitate it like Melbourne and Sydney did. So maybe suddenly Brisbane gets that invite as well, with big artists.
Yeah, but then you're left with everyone doing ACLs. So
yeah,
like,
it's a tough one. I get that it's a pretty complicated thing, and especially when politics is involved, and the only thing that really matters at the end of the day is money and votes. So that's what's going to speak. So I don't know. My thing is, if you're going to keep referring to the cost of living relief that you're putting first, then those effects better be fucking immediate and obvious to me as someone that, is living week to week, paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, well, what's happened with the Royal Commission and like Coles and Woolies? Like, where's that gone?
Yeah.
As a complete aside, when all of that happened with the Four Corner stuff about that, I was like, why don't they just make Coles and Woolworths not able to advertise? Everyone's still going to go there.
Yeah.
Like, and the amount of advertising that they do on everything all the time, YouTube, TV, streaming, it's all there. And you're like, fuck, I know where to buy hot cross buns. Like, I know where to buy them from. It's Easter. Coles or Woolies or the bakery. And it will be the bakery because fuck you guys, basically. Don't let I'm getting way off topic here, but man, like just don't have them advertise and pass the savings onto the consumer, so I don't have to spend $11 on a bag of fucking cheese.
I get it.
Like,
I get it. Anyway, without this turning into a political rant, let's get back to the footy. Massive game this Thursday. What we have been introducing this year is some memorable moments, memorable games between the two teams, and obviously there's a fair amount of obvious ones to choose from when it comes to Brisbane and Collingwood. There's 3 grand finals, obviously, you can have a chat about, but I'm going to go a little bit less obvious and then go back to the good old days of 2014, where we finished 15th on the ladder with 7 wins. Collingwood finished 11th with 11 wins. But one of the great performances from the Lions down at the MCG, Jono Freeman kicking 4 goals. Dane Beams still with Collingwood at that stage. Tim Broomhead kicked 3 for the Pies on that day.
the only thing I remember about that guy was him snapping his leg around the goalpost.
Yep. Our best that day were Dane Zorko, Tom Rockcliffe, Pierce Hanley, Steph Martin, Jed Adcock, Jono Freeman, as I said, who kicked 4. And we walked away with a fairly decent win, 56 to 123 in the end. How's that for a team that can't play at the MCG?
Yeah, well, hopefully we get a bit more of that Zorko.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw you back to that, the sort of one game that Jono Freeman pulled out of his jacksie, and he was never to be seen again after that, went on to play for Aspley.
The much heralded. Yeah, I got to admit that's kind of in peak not giving a shit time, I feel. Like, I have no memory of that. I'm sure I might have watched it. Who knows?
I mean,
Don't know.
you wouldn't be alone there. You wouldn't be alone there. That was a dull time as Lions supporters, but I thought I'd give us something to smile about. Josh Green also kicked 2 goals.
Your mate.
And that was when we were playing Rog Merritt up forward because he kicked 3.
Why are we doing that again?
Mate.
Were we really that blessed down back to warrant having a...
No, obviously not, but remember he kicked 7 against GWS as well?
So we opted to go the glass cannon route, and it worked that time. We didn't shatter, so I guess fair enough to the coaches at that point in time. They got one of their 7. I didn't pick a game because I forgot to think. But let's just go that one at Docklands a couple of years ago with Zach Bailey after the siren, because I remember we conversed during that game and we're in a similar position to where we are now.
That's right.
0-2. That game was unfortunately moved due to the Rona. So what should have been a big, whatever this is, Easter Thursday, wound up being down there. And you sent me a message during the game and you said, "Ooh, we are bad."
Yep.
Something along those lines. "Ooh, we are not good."
Yeah, that sounds like something I'd say.
Because I think at that point in time, we were not good.
But walked away with one of the all-time wins. Still see Mitch Robinson and Zach Bailey, in arm after that game. Big hugs after he put through the sealer. Good stuff. Yeah.
Really kind of got that season a bit on track.
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah,
we finished top 4. Did we?
That was the season we scraped in to top 4.
Yeah, that weird West Coast thing.
And we
that's
took,
all I could really... Yeah,
we took
all
the
I could really
Bulldogs
think
spot,
about.
and then the Bulldogs ended up beating us in that semi-final, which was a bit of a fun one. So, yeah, some good...
Another classic game that we won't watch again. So
Yes. So good to look back on that one. Good to look back on those, and hopefully it's not a kick after the siren that can get us the win. Having said that, I'll take it if that's what it is.
Well, yeah, talking on the main event, we know that I don't do predictions, but I think there were a lot of 3 or 4 goals, and then someone said 3 or 4 points, and it was sort of like, well, it's negligible given the commentary team. 3 or 4 goals will be the same feeling as 3 or 4 points. So,
Yeah.
It's all in the eye of the beholder. Do you think that there has been or will be a bigger Easter Thursday football event?
No. Probably not since, 0203 days.
Yeah, that's a good point, but
Yeah.
does anyone really remember? It's a bit tree fall in the woods at this point in time.
Yeah, it's probably the one with the most impact, with the most at stake in recent memory, that's for sure, yeah.
Because they went. I think this time last year, I got it wrong in saying that we went to the Easter Thursday game in 2018 or whatever, 5 years or whatever. I kind of made a big hubbub about it, not really realizing that I don't think they actually did Easter Thursday back in 2018 because we were horrible. So I think it was just like a random game during the season.
Yep.
So got that wrong. Just like to make a public announcement that I made a mistake 1 year ago. And let's all move on from there. So,
all right, well that'll just about do us for this week. Nice and short one. Like I said, if you want to catch up on some extra content from us, then make sure you head along to the main event. We'll share the links at all our social pages, and it'll be available at brisbanelionsfancast.com.au, where you can also win yourself a double pass to the Q Clash with our meat tray raffle. Tickets are $2 each, 3 for $5. It's a double premium pass up for grabs. They're worth about $70 each, I think. So
probably in the corporate section, that's apparently not very good. But
head along to the website if you want your chance to win one of those. brisbanelionsfancast.com.au. Make sure you follow us, and please consider joining the Patreon program. There is a bonus chat with Mitch Robinson up there now as well. During my day job as a radio host, we spoke to him in the lead up. He's got a boxing match coming up in a couple of weeks' time, so it's largely focused around that. But there's a bit of footy chat in there as well, so you can hear that. You can catch up on the exclusive video content as well, where there will be more of this week. Yay!
Pretty good.
All right, and if you're at the Gabba, I'll bloody see you there Thursday night, section 422, if you want to catch up of a beveragino.